Thank you, Jon. Great to be here. Happy to see so many of you at 8:15. So, my name is Myllyntaus. It's easy to remember. It's the same as the credit card. I come from Helsinki, Finland, from Alma Media, which is a digital marketplace/media company. We have 1,800 people in 12 countries in Europe. I'm in charge of performance and rewards. I've also written 3 books, first on employee experience, employee brand, second on diversity at work, and the third in performance management. The third will be on the stores later this year. Actually, yesterday I sent the final manuscript to my publicist before coming to the first lecture, and it was a great day yesterday. All in Finnish, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm very motivated on getting the third book out in English, at least as a self-publishing. The books have been received well. The Diversity book won the Best Business Book Award in Finland, which is a biannual competition. Let's see how the last one will fare. Agenda for the day, I will talk about my performance management book, some of the things and findings I have had from the book, and also some things that our company is doing. So I'm trying to mix it up. We will talk first, should we manage performance? And if so, how? The big question is it a waste of time? And to a big extent, it must be. Because as we all know, it is the most hated HR process that there is. No doubt. And I'm sure many of you own performance management in your respective companies, and I'm sure you hate it as well. Because at least many of the leaders that I discussed with, they were not happy with the performance management processes that they had in their companies. People are not happy with appraisals and not the whole process. So, just before we go to solutions, let's recap the problems that we have. I believe we have 4 problems. First is that there is no clear link to strategy. We are just doing the stuff that we used to do before, and we are not very intentional. We are not thinking what the strategy needs and not building on top of that. The second thing is that it is not following the time, meaning that how we work has changed. However, performance management still looks like exactly the same it was 20 years before. At least in Finland, we still do the things Nokia did 20 years ago. Okay, maybe it's better here in Denmark. Thirdly, and this is a real problem, it is not intentional, meaning that we are not making targets and goals for performance management. What do we really want to get out of it? And then designing the whole process to meet those goals. We're just doing these kind of average stuff without thinking what we really want to have it. And lastly, and this is the biggest problem, we are doing things that we, as professionals, we know that don't work. We know from academic studies that they don't bring value. We still do them, and we are wasting a lot of time. I claim there is a better way. I had 3 revelations in writing the book, and the first revelation was I realized, I don't know if you agree with me or not, I realized that the reason why people hate performance management and why it doesn't work is that we focus, if this is the whole performance management, we focus only on half of performance management because we, as companies, we focus only on performance process management. And what I mean by that, I mean by we are thinking questions like, what is the system? Where do we log in targets? How many targets should a person have? How the KPIs are being measured? Are all targets smart? How we evaluate? What is the evaluation scale? Who evaluates? We spend a lot of time thinking about these things, and then we go to the organization and we say, okay, these are the rules of performance management. You have to follow these rules. And we leave out the part that is actually important, and that is performance leadership. Performance leadership could be that we promote people who are actually capable and willing and motivated to lead others. We train them and we trust them that they can make good judgment in these situations. And I will come back to this idea later on. I have an example on giving feedback, and I will talk about the distinction. So the idea is that we are now putting almost all of our time and effort on the processes, but we should put the main effort and most of our time in building performance leadership, and then putting as little time as needed into the process side. So my thinking is the processes should be very slim, and we should, as companies, focus on the leadership. And then we're soon coming to the second revelation. Just as a recap, everybody knows this. The traditional way of managing performance is that it has a beginning, that is the target setting, and it has an end, which is evaluation. And those are the two focus points. And we all know that is not enough. And I am proposing that we add on stuff. Well, first of all, we do want to keep the target setting. That is the foundation. We can't have performance management unless we have good target setting. And with target setting, what I think about it is that, first of all, we have to link it to the strategy. So there has to be a clear link to strategy in all of the targets that we set. It doesn't need to cascade down, because that, again, takes too much time. But there has to be a strategic link. We have to think about our clock rate. So do we use annual targets, or maybe companies who use OKR, you know that the speeding up the clock rate might actually bring more benefits. So the periods that you track can be like tertiles or quartals. We need to be intentional in target setting. It doesn't always mean that we have to have smart targets. That is just one example of a perfect target, but we rarely have unicorns. So as long as we are intentional and we really know what we want out of those targets, then that is enough. And we need to have transparency. We need to build much more transparency. But it is not enough that we just give targets to our people and then we say, go. We at least have to focus equally as much on enabling success. What I mean by that, and this is the leadership part to a big extent, I mean actions that make sure that people have the capabilities to actually meet and exceed the targets that we give them as managers and directors. That we support their growth and in the everyday life. It starts with very basic stuff, so all the topics are familiar to you, but how do we systematically enable those in the organization? That is the big question. How do we make sure people know the people they lead? I don't think we should motivate people. I think we should focus on the volition of how to get things done, because motivation is something the person brings, and volition is something the managers can help you with if needed. We should teach our managers to be servant leaders and to coach. I don't say you should be a servant leader and a coach all the time, but you should have those tools in your toolkit. So if you're a manager in year 2025 and you don't have those toolkits, you are lacking. Okay, and you should have the tools. We should teach those tools so that people can lead better. And we should be able to manage the emotional climate at work, for example, psychological safety and so on. So people have the feeling they can fail and so on. The third component that I think that in every company should have is continuous feedback. So you should build the company culture in such a way that the feedback culture starts to grow. And this, again, nothing big news, but you just have to be intentional of creating that culture so that it goes throughout the organization. Because feedback actually is maybe one of the most important things that there is from the person's point of view. Once they are going strong and they are succeeding, you have enabled them, they need feedback until they retire. It just takes different forms with senior people, but everybody wants feedback and we need to ensure that. And lastly, we need to make actions based on performance. That brings the ROI out. What do I mean by actions? I have a list of 4 things. First of all, we might want to evaluate. I don't say you should evaluate. This is an action you choose. We might want to encourage learning based on performance. We might want to reward based on performance, so pay for performance. But something we should always do is we should always manage underperformance. So the first 3 are optional. Last one is not optional. So the second revelation in the book, what I'm trying to say is that all companies should utilize these 4 steps in the way that suits them. So I don't think any company can leave one of these 4 out if they want to have a modern performance management system. And the third revelation that I had was that companies need to make choices. You can't benchmark and just copy performance management. You can copy payroll. You can copy talent acquisition to some extent, but you cannot copy performance management processes. In the book, I'm representing 17 choices that when the companies make those choices, then they have a tailored performance management for them. Now, as I have only 30 minutes, I can only show you 3 of those choices. But the idea is that you need to make the conscious choices on these 4 topics, and then you are good to go. So the 3 will not represent all of these 4 stages, but just a glimpse. And these are the choices that I will cover now. How we ensure continuous feedback, how do we evaluate or do we evaluate, and how do we approach underperformance. Firstly, on feedback, it's good to define feedback, because I believe the majority of what we get at work and that we think is feedback is not actually feedback, and we'll come back to what it actually is. This is a definition of feedback from a good dictionary. It has 2 points that I think are important. First is the helpful word there. So it should empower you. It should feel good and kind of like wish you, well, how can I say, bring your self-confidence up and empower you to do more. And the second thing here is that it needs to help you improve your game, your work, you as a professional. Okay, so these 2 criteria. And I didn't have that on actually. Okay, so helpful, information or criticism to improve performance. So those two requirements. And we get a 2x2 matrix out of this. So either things are empowering or they are not. They help you improve or they don't help you improve. So feedback, as we discussed, is on the top right-hand corner there, and that's where we want to be. Now, unfortunately, we rarely are there. Where are we? Usually, we're on a praise section here. Feels good. Very powerful. You should give praise, but praise is not enough because you did a good job, doesn't help you grow. Great presentation, doesn't help you understand why it was good and ensure that the presentations will be great in the future as well. What we get also is criticism, like the evil sister of praise. You know, it's not beneficial. You don't need criticism at all because it's not helpful and it discourages people. And then we have the last one, the hard truths. You know, people sometimes think that there is a place for hard truths. I think it is the last option. You need to give feedback, and maybe laterwards, sometimes, but very, very rarely, you can give hard truths. The problem is that they discourage. They have a seed of wisdom in them, but people lose heart. And we need to make conscious choices and teach our managers to go from all of these 3 other options towards feedback. And how do we do that? If we were to build a formal process, we might say, let's have 360s. Okay, that is an example of a formal process. I don't think that is a good idea. It takes too much time. It is so stiff. You can do it once a year at max. Do you really want your people to get feedback once a year? No. And then there are a lot of studies that show that this kind of anonymous feedback systems they are not very productive. So you need to build the feedback culture, which is like the performance leadership part. You could promote first of all, people who want to serve as leaders. You can highlight feedback and the impact of that. I used to work in a company where the CEO used to showcase customer feedback every month in his calls where everybody participated, highlighting the importance of feedback because we were building customer kind of experience at that stage. You could have rules for feedback. Sounds silly, but very beneficial. Simple rules. What is feedback? What is not? How it is given? Who can give feedback? And so on. And then you can train your managers. You can build their capabilities, and then you are just rolling out, like again and again, why feedback is important. So all of those actions are very easy, and you know them, but I just encourage to go from formal processes to this kind of leadership phase. Then I go to the other two examples. They are all on the fourth dimension of this model that I had, the actions based on performance. And I will pay a little bit of attention to evaluation and managing underperformance. About evaluation, there are some reasons why we should evaluate, and then there are reasons why we might not evaluate. And if we just cover those a little bit, one might say that it is a requirement for linking pay that is to a certain extent true. I will discuss that later. One might say that because we are having this new legislation, that this is not the time to stop evaluating, and companies who are not evaluating, they should start to do that, so you can have one more parameter to base your pay decisions. A good reason, I think, is that it is true, indeed, that managers always evaluate, and if you don't have a formal process, they will do it informally. Back in their head, everybody knows who is the top player, and so on. And we have some evidence that certain kinds of evaluations lead to good results, but they need to be agile. They need to be like on the spot and very fast and continuous. The reasons why we might not evaluate include, for example, the fact that managers are not very good at this. We know from studies that when we have managers, if we have multiple managers evaluating the same person in one big study, only 25% of the evaluations made by these two managers were the same. 75% were not the same, so that doesn't sound very reliable. It takes a lot of time. This is one of the biggest reasons why maybe you should not evaluate. It takes a lot of resources from the HR and the management organization, the line management. What is counterintuitive, but studies show that performance of individuals, and especially if we rated them, the rating of an individual does not directly explain the performance of the team. And reason being, it is difficult to evaluate individual performance in the team's context. We know also from studies that if we evaluate, and especially if there is a strong link from pay to performance, then people are trying their best to get easier targets. And less ambitious targets means we get less things done in the company. So, like, if I were a CEO, I would want to have more things done in the company. I would want to have ambitious goals and not less ambitious ones. And people lose heart in evaluation, even the people who perform well. Because if you have a scale of 1 to 5, getting a 4 is a great thing, but the top performer might think that, why am I not a 5? I should be 5. I'm good, you know. I'm actually excellent, you know. So being above the average is not enough for people. And then we might say that, okay, we need this for the pay transparency. Well, if you take your data and you make a regression model and you study how much performance evaluation explains pay differences, I'm sure you will come to the same conclusion as I have, that it explains only a few percentages of the pay differences between individuals. So you cannot benefit from a factor that has such a small significance. So you will rarely have those situations where you can bring data into the table and saying that's why this person gets so much more. Okay? You might say and use that explanation without the data anyways. Okay? And then I had the last thing, people don't want to be evaluated. They want to have feedback, as I mentioned before. Feedback is essential, evaluation is not. Now, in our company, I tried to say, let's not evaluate. I made the case, but the management team wanted us to evaluate. Still, fine, let's do that. How do we evaluate and make the best out of that? I have a few ideas. Firstly, and this is what we did, we know from studies that there are two things, not three, but two things. The evaluator, they must be very motivated to evaluate. So they must really, really understand why we are doing this and what are the benefits of this process. And then they have to be capable. In our company, I have personally trained over 40 training sessions this year alone on performance management, and the year hasn't ended. Okay, so I'll be over 50 when the year is done. That is a big time investment in training. The other thing is that in our company, we don't say that you got 3, or you got 2, or you got 4. We use a semantic rating scale, meaning we don't talk numbers. This is our rating scale in Workday that we use. When the person self-evaluates, they don't pick a number for themselves, and manager doesn't pick a number, they pick text. Actually, Workday, we needed to squeeze simplify those wordings there, but you get the point. So you would choose, I fully met my expectations. And the manager gets to say, you fully met your expectations. They don't say, you're 3. And it might feel like a small thing, but it's actually a big thing, because everybody thinks from numbers, school, and you needed to get a good score, and so on. But in the back end, of course, we have the numbers so we can make calculations and so. And by the way, we deliberately have only 4 stages here, because when people meet the targets, they are above the mean. You know, it's nicer to be above the mean than be 3 on a scale from 1 to 5. So it feels better. This feels better. And we didn't need the distinction between the 4 and the 5, because it's hard to make anyways. And then lastly, we have made only a few links to pay. Deliberately, our STI is a profit share model. Nobody has individual KPIs. I don't think that is motivating, and I don't think that has a big impact. We, on our salary reviews, we don't have a mathematical formula. We do say that give more to the people who are performing better, but that's what the managers would do anyways, because they anyways would, evaluate in their minds and give more to the people who they find are more profitable. So this eases the difficultiness of evaluation. And then lastly, just a few points on underperformance. So usually it is a little bit tough, the situations you are, an individual can be sentenced in the number 1 category of the rating too easily. And I think we should encourage our managers to swiftly tackle any performance problems, but to have a mirror when they do that, a mirror that reflects their own actions as well. And we can do that by facing 3 questions. First question is, have we recruited the right person? And have I trained as a manager? Have I onboarded the person? And if I'm honest and I say no, I haven't done enough work to train them, then we need to acknowledge that it is a knowledge gap, not a performance gap. The second question is that have we clearly communicated expectations? So the biggest part of target setting is that you need to communicate the target well, not how you phrase and smart and so on. Have you discussed many times throughout your period of evaluation or the year, what does it mean? What does good look like? And if not, then this is not a performance problem, it is an expectation gap. So what I expect and what you expect, there is a gap. And the third question is that, have we made them accountable? And have we been able to make that performance culture in our organization to a high enough level. And again, I'm coming back to the idea of performance leadership. And if we say, well, we haven't been accountable, we haven't really followed the KPIs we have set for this person, we haven't really said where they need to be and enabled their success along the way, this is an action gap. I haven't, as a manager, acted well enough. If the answer to all of these questions is yes, then there is a performance problem. Yes, we need to address that quickly and strongly and empathetically, but otherwise, it's a management issue. It is my issue as a manager to deal with this. So, lastly, 3 key learnings. First of all, I believe, you might disagree, but I believe performance management is the second most important HR process. Payroll is most important, then it's performance management, because that helps us get things done in the organization. We need to do that, but it needs to be company specific. So we can't do the things that we've always done. We need to go through this kind of a molding process. And we need to put more emphasis on the leadership part, performance leadership, than performance processes. And then the last point was that, okay, the book has 17 choices you need to make. I'm sure there are more. You will think of more, but you need to make a deliberate choices to build your own performance management. Those were the key takeaways. We have time for questions. I have a request for you. I have been talking about feedback, so I would like to get feedback from you. I ask this after every training session in-house and external. So by just click of your phone, you can answer anonymously to 2 questions, which would help me out a lot. Thank you.